Group 4, Jasmine,
Yes, ma'am.
pwede nyo ulit i-play yung ano ninyo, yung video. Kasi we still wait siguro around 5 more minutes, ano? So we have a better number of participants. Okay? Kasi 22 pa lang.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Bawat lakbay ng bituin ay may tagumpay. Anumang bagyo't lindol sa gisag mo ay aming gabay. Iba't ibang lahi at kulay nagwawagay-way patungo sa tahanan ng mga mahuhusay. Sa bawat larangan, ipapamana sa buong sambayanan. Hinta ko sumabay sa sinag ng araw. Hintayo sa lugar ng sining na buhay. Hinuhubog ang mga atleta, makanta't talubasa. Tatak, Universidad ng Cordilleras.
Sabay sa pagsikat ng araw, ngalan mo'y sasayaw.
Sa pag-usbong ng tinataging galing, sulong mo'y nagliliyap pa rin.
Isnan matuwan di ako, itay tayo wanagan mo.
Ipasas na isyum-syuma dyan kinadaing, itagtagay nan laing mo.
Manasa sa tamo, yaman alalay gusto. Ikarkararagan nga to, yaman agraksan tamo. Mansaksak kay kiron, manis guidan di gusto. Isyaw-syawat ko na po, dyan mandadat sa hito.
Sumabay sa sinag ng araw. Intayo sa lugar ng sining na buhay. Ginuhubog ang mga atleta, makata't dalubasa. Tatak, Universidad ng Cordilleras. Ko sumabay sa sinag ng araw. Intayo sa lugar ng sining na buhay.
Morning, everyone. Before we start, I would just like to remind everyone to please mute all your microphones in order to avoid any distraction that may arise during the symposium, okay? Please mute all your microphones. For a while. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good morning to the second part of the symposium for English Ed 111-2A of College of Teacher Education. Welcome to the Academic Paper Symposium, the second part of the Academic Paper Symposium. Okay, so before everything else, I would like to welcome, I'm Lewin Jones O'Goyle, and I would like to appreciate everyone for taking time off your busy schedules to join us today, even if it's a Sunday. We hope you will learn a lot today from the great lineup of academic papers to be discussed today, particularly the improving language skills through three-dimensional frameworks and innovations in teaching grammar, the appropriateness of redefining the construct and partial scoring in assessing grammar, the social dimension in assessing grammar effectively with the use of standard. Wait long. For a while, it seems we're having some difficulties. Calvin, could you please share the screen already? Please share the screen.
Colleen will share the screen.
Colleen, please share the screen. Okay, there we go. Well, welcome again to the second part of the academic paper symposium of Group 4, Group 5, and Group 6. So before everything else, may I invite everyone to invoke the Almighty with Miss Beverly. Miss Beverly. Miss Beverly, are you there?
Okay, so let's have a short prayer. Let us bow down our heads and feel the presence of the Lord. So, Lord God, thank you for everything that you gave us. Today, as we are going to have our symposium, please continue to guide us, grant us your knowledge and wisdom. Please help us to execute our presentation very well. Help us to answer the question and to have a positive results today. So we offer you to you, Lord, all of this, all of our hopes and dreams. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Miss Beverly, for that wonderful prayer. Now, again, I welcome everyone to give our opening remarks is Ma'am Alma Biscocho. Ma'am Alma.
So good morning, my dear students. Good morning to each and every one of us. We only have 28 participants, less my account. Oh, we have 29. Okay, so less my account. So it means to say there are only a few students who are able to join us for the meantime, but maybe our number will increase later on. But nonetheless, I still welcome you to the symposium of groups 4, 5, and 6. Let us listen as they do their symposium and as they expose the contents of their paper together with their different conclusions and of course the different questions that will be given to each and every group. So we hope that we enjoy. Of course, we're not going to enjoy, right? We are here to learn. Okay, so we hope that we learn a lot from the papers that will be discussed for today, and I am glad that you could make it. So may I remind you of the rules of our symposium. So there will only be around 7 minutes to 8 minutes presentation coming from the presenters, followed by a Q&A and a follow-up question if ever there is. or if it is deemed necessary. And after that, if I have a question, then I ask a question. If I don't, then I don't ask a question. If I get the meaning of everything here, then there is a chance that I might not ask a question. Okay, but rest assured that we are here, groups 4, 5, and 6, and that we are proud of you because even on a Sunday, you graced our event for today. Okay, so magandang umaga for the different group members, especially those not belonging to groups 4, 5, and 6. You mute your microphone so that our presenters will not be distracted. And you may get your lunch, you may get your snacks because this might go on for nearly 2 hours, just like what we did yesterday. Although yesterday was really a little bit longer because I gave a few extraneous reminders and instructions, even those instructions that are not needed for your course. Okay, so we move on. Let's start. Mr. Lewin, let's start with group 4.
Hey, good morning again, everyone. Let's not waste any more time and proceed to the presentation of Group 4. Group 4, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, there we have Ana Marie Estioco and Anne Lorraine Gonzaga for the presenters. Let's give them a round of applause, everyone.
Thank you for that, Lewin. So good morning, everyone. I am Ana Maria Estioco.
And I am Anne-Lorraine Gonzaga.
And in behalf of Group 4, we will present our academic paper entitled Improving Language Skills Through Three-Dimensional Framework and Innovations in Teaching Grammar. Next slide, please. Grammar, the structural glue, the code of language, is undoubtedly at the center of all language usage. It is frequently regarded as a crucial part of comprehending and communicating meaning, and it is directly related to language proficiency. Therefore, assessing learners' ability to use grammar is critical for their language learning success. Our paper covers the three-dimensional grammar framework, which facilitates the usage of grammar structures with accuracy, meaning, and appropriateness, and as well as the innovations in grammar assessment, where there is a number of innovations that are being implemented and proposed. Next slide, please. As stated by Diane Larson Freeman in her work about teaching grammar, the improvement of language skills among learners is sought to be discussed through the three-dimensional grammar framework and the innovations in grammar assessment. So overall, the paper aims to answer these following questions. The first one here is, how does the three-dimensional framework improve the language skills of learners? And the second one is, what innovation or innovations in assessing grammar can be used to aid the framework in improving the matter? Okay, for the first question, Larson Freeman in 2003 found out that the framework does help and that all of the three dimensions, namely the structure or form, the semantics or meaning, and the pragmatics will have to be mastered by the learner. In relation to that of the latter, the individual purposes of these three combined in one reveal that these dimensions are obviously interconnected and are complementing each other. First, the form or structure. Studies like that of Bowie in 1986 and Bowie and Patel in 1988 proposed that syntactic awareness and reading comprehension skills showed correlation in children aging 6 to 10 years old, while Tummer in 1989 connotes that syntactic awareness projects reading comprehension a year later among first grade learners through its influence on decoding and listening comprehension. There were also a number of studies which suggested that there is a correlation between syntactic awareness and reading comprehension among learners, according to Cain in 2007. Therefore, providing support for developing syntax skills can help readers understand increasingly complex texts. On the other hand, Lee in 2012 claimed that the teaching discourse writing strives to promote the student's discourse consciousness and competence construction. As a result, Teachers should gradually guide students about the textual core from the perspective of rhetoric to appreciate its inner beauty in terms of organization, word choice, structure, and so on, while also understanding the author's intention, their thoughts and purpose, as well as writing style and techniques, and also mining the hidden deep meaning between the lines. Moving on, pragmatics demonstrates its importance in improving language skills, particularly in the areas of listening and speaking, as it encompasses speeches acts, conversational structure, conversational implicature, conversational management, discourse organization, and social linguistic aspects of language use, such as addressing these forms, as stated by Bardovi Harlig and Mahan Taylor in 2003. In other words, pragmatics is critical in communication where speaking and listening abilities are required. Okay, so to understand more about our academic paper, may I call on Ms. Anne-Lorraine Gonzaga to discuss the remaining parts. Ms. Anne-Lorraine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Estioco. So in addition to what Ms. Estioco discussed about the three-dimensional grammar framework, the researchers also found out during the process that the said framework is also somewhat related to what I'm about to discuss to you, which is the innovations on grammar assessment. So in light of the innovations on grammar assessment as aid to language skills improvement, it involves a definition of the grammar construct itself. Expanding beyond form to include grammatical meaning is one such move. For instance, Purpura of 2004 defines grammatical ability for assessment purposes as involving the capacity to realize grammatical knowledge accurately and meaningfully in test-taking or other language use contexts. Grammatical ability may also interact with pragmatic ability, which Purpura considers a different ability area. So there are at least 4 innovations on grammar assessment present in teaching and testing grammar presented by Larson Freeman of 2009. These are redefining construct, partial scoring, social dimension, and the standard. The preceding parts will discuss the grammar assessment innovations, which may have the potential to improve language skills of learners. Now, it is important to note that the first innovation, which is redefining the construct, has shown that it is extensive to the form, meaning, and use of grammar like that of the framework. It was mentioned previously that the 3 different wedges of the three-dimensional framework cater to the 4 language skills. Analyzing even further, this innovation necessitates assessing how grammar functions at the discourse level, where it's used in cohesion, thematic continuity, anaphora, cataphora, grammatical focus, backgrounding, and foregrounding are measured, as well as assessing students' knowledge of how social linguistic functions such as constructing identity, conveying politeness, and displaying power are realized grammatically. Discourse level refers to a language stage where people deliver a whole range of ideas in an organized manner, whether the choice is writing or speaking, as defined by the Developing Language Skills at the Word, Sentence, and Discourse levels of 2018. In short, with this type of grammar assessment innovation, assessing how grammar functions at the discourse level are measured. The other innovations will also be briefly discussed to see and compare their differences and understand why redefining construct is the one that has the most potential to aid the three-dimensional grammar framework. So partial scoring pertains to the shift from dichotomous to polytomous assessment, which involves checking assessment items that have 2 or more correct answers. Meanwhile, the social dimension focuses on how social intervention can help in seeing grammar progress of learners through dynamic assessment or providing pre-test and later on post-test after the teacher teaches students how to perform well. Lastly, the standard is more on preventing fossilization by making sure that the target language is learned at an environment that can authentically be beneficial in learning the target language. The comparisons show that when it comes to the features and use of the three-dimensional grammar framework, redefining the construct is the only one out of the 4 innovations that has the similarity to the framework's extent of assessment. The conclusions that were derived from the study are the following. The three-dimensional framework, according to Larson Freeman of 2014, is a non-hierarchical framework that provides learners language skills improvement through appropriate activities that make them apply structural grammar, semantics, and pragmatics. And lastly, among the 4 grammar innovation assessments, redefining the construct has the most potential to aid the 3-dimensional framework in improving language skills of learners. Both the framework and the grammar assessment innovation mentioned show congruency and are complementing with one another, as the two cover the concepts of 3 dimensions of grammar, which are form, meaning, and use, which utilizes the 4 language skills. So the key point that you need to remember in our topic is the essence that the learners have to study grammar to become effective and competent language users who can organize words and messages meaningfully and can be better sentence builders in performance areas like speaking and writing. So that ends the presentation of our academic paper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Miss Anne Lorraine Gonzaga and Miss Ana Maria Stioco. Now let's proceed to the academic paper question and answer part for Group 4. For this, we have Miss Jessica Silvestre as the Q&A facilitator. Miss Jessica, are you there? It seems that Miss Jessica isn't here. She's informed me that she won't be able to attend because of the slow internet connection. Because of this, the job or task is now passed to another Group 5 member, which would be Miss Angelica Mines. Miss Angelica, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Okay, there we now can you start with the Q&A part of the academic paper of Group 5? Thank you.
Okay, so this is the question. You've said a while ago that redefining the construct is very connected to 3-dimensional grammar framework. So what is its implication then to our jobs as English teachers in the future?
Okay.
Again, can you repeat the question?
Okay, so you've said a while ago that redefining the construct is very connected to 3-dimensional grammar framework. So what is its application then to our jobs as English teachers in the future?
Okay, so as English teachers in the future who will be teaching grammar as well, since we are all English majors, maybe, not really maybe, but what it tries to implicate is that when we try to teach grammar, we make sure that we should teach the 3 dimensions, like the construct, the form, meaning, and use. You should teach these 3, or you assess the students using these 3 dimensions. Do not only focus on assessing them through making them do not only, they call that, when you're assessing your students, you should not only focus on making them answer writing assessment activities that will only make them spot what is wrong or right in their grammar. You should make them, as teachers, we should make them assess. We should assess them by seeing if they understand or if they know the meaning of what they are constructing, and if they know how they will apply it in real world communication. That is the part of the meaning and use. So in short, we should not only assess them through the form of grammar, but we should also assess them through the meaning and use of grammar. That's all. By making them use the 4 language skills. That's what I am talking about. Is that enough, Miss Angelica?
Yes, thank you for that answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Miss Clarice and Miss Angelica. We have something, Miss Alma, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I have your point a while back, Miss Clarice, is well noted and well taken. So I believe that when you assess, you don't only assess one aspect right? Like the form. Do you remember what I told you yesterday? You have to be a little bit forgiving when you are talking about grammar, because it's really very tempting that when you are an English teacher, especially if you are a newbie, you get what I mean? If you are a new teacher in the teaching field, it's very tempting to really exhibit your mastery of the English grammar, and you would want to impress your students maybe. Okay? Tayo naman, we are just teachers, but we are also human beings. You know, we are also human beings, so there are temptations somewhere along the way that may happen, and one of which is to impose our authority over the use of the English language. Kasi 'di ba, it's very tempting to tell them, especially your students, lalo na in the high school, especially in the high school, if you are a junior high school or a senior high school student, kasi ang age ninyo parang hindi magkakalayo, 'di ba? Okay, so it's very tempting to tell them and to insist to them and to make it known by everyone that you are an English major. So what you do is you tend to become very strict and rigid when you check essay answers or anything, di ba? You become very, very engrossed with your instructions and all that. But you see, according to the point of Miss Clarissa a while ago, when we check, we don't only check the form. Kasi sa grammar, parang puro form di ba? Sometimes we forget about the semantics. Kasi may semantics yan, may meaning rin yan, di ba? Remember what I have been telling you about communicative competence, di ba? According to most linguists nowadays, it doesn't matter if grammar is wrong. We are not a grammar school. Gone were the days, you will learn this in second language acquisition. Gone were the days when teachers would highly focus on grammar. We are not a grammar school. Tayo ay holistic ang attack. Our schools are mostly holistic in terms of its attack. So there are times that spelling may suffer, punctuation marks may suffer, organization of sentence or syntax is erroneous, or maybe even spelling may be erroneous. So the point here is, if you could understand what the student means, then by all means, there are times that you really have to close your eyes and ask yourself, ano ba yung objective ko? That's why whenever you give an evaluation, there should always be an assessment. Ano bang objective mo? Ang objective mo ba ay spelling? Then you should have done a spelling quiz. Ang objective mo ba ay SVA? Then you should have done fill in the blanks with the correct verb, di ba? More on linguistics, di ba? More on syntax, something like that. To cut the long story short, other than being very forgiving, not naman very to the point that you close your eyes altogether in everything and tell yourself, sige na nga, perfect ko na silang lahat. That's not what I meant, diba? That's not what I meant. But you have to bend your rules once in a while, okay? Especially if you are teaching EFL, okay? Not all of you will land a regular teaching job right after your graduation or right after you what they call this, pass your board examination. I am claiming that you will pass your board examination, of course, right? So here, should you become an ESL teacher or an EFL teacher for that matter, you try your best to check what you are assessing, di ba? Kung Chinese yan, it's a given that there might be errors in spelling or even in punctuation marks. But you look at how the trend, yun pala yun, I've been looking for the word since a while ago. You look for the trend of the answers of the students, di ba? If it makes sense, then you have to give a little credit for that. Okay? Do not ganito yan do not find something in someone which is not really present or evident. Diba? Why will you look for spelling if you are teaching in the elementary level, like let's say grade 1, and then you will ask them to spell words which are beyond their level, unless you are teaching in a special education class. right? Where you have students who are gifted and who happen to be fast learners. O sige, yan, you could make that. But otherwise, you could bend your rules a little, okay? But you see, Miss Clarice, that is not my point. I have a question for your group, okay? My question is, you are mentioning about the three-dimensional grammar framework, right? Where you have pragmatics, where you have structure and form, and even semantics or the meaning. Okay. If I were to ask you, since you understood the meaning of these three, okay, if I were to ask you, which is the most difficult to assess, what will be your answer and why? Kasi you have to assess the three, di ba? You have to assess the three. You have to check the three when you are assessing grammar. Pero if I give you the chance to just choose one, okay, and assess it, alin ang pinakamahirap i-assess dyan? And why?
Wait, let me recall the three dimensions. So the form is on the structure, the meaning of the words, the pragmatics is on the use of language or how they use. I think it's the pragmatics, ma'am, because you cannot really because pragmatics is that, well, let me recall because this was in our report then in last time about the pragmatics then. Like it is really hard to know if the student really if the student has really applied pragmatics or if he understands. So, I mean not understand, but or if he or she has applied those.
Okay, here. I will agree with you. Yeah, structure is very easy to check, right? It's highly objective. Okay? Meaning is somewhere in between of being objective and at the same time subjective. But pragmatics is the practical use of the language. That's why it's very difficult to assess it. Okay, so ma'am, if it's very difficult to assess it, then how come it's there in the three-dimensional framework? Because it's a part of how you should assess. Diba? I've been talking about be forgiving, be a little bit bending about your rules, be a little bit flexible, okay? Do not be so content-oriented. Kasi yung mga yan, all of those will fall under pragmatics, okay? I want my English majors to recall, okay, what pragmatics is in the simplest way I could explain it to you. It's the practical use of language. Very practical ang gamit ng language when you are talking about pragmatics, okay? Just like what I've been emphasizing, okay? If you are a foreigner, sometimes there's a tendency that you could not really explain the language. Okay, again, as in, how do I say this? Seamless. Okay, you could not really speak the language in a very seamless manner, diba? It's a given. Why? It's not your first language. Okay, that's why now when you are teaching EFL or foreign language, English as a foreign language, wag kang mayabang. You know why? Okay, lalo na if you are teaching Koreans, kasi usually Pinoys teach Koreans. We teach Vietnamese, we teach Thai, and then we also teach Chinese, Japanese also. Okay? Huwag ka masyadong mayabang about the English language. You know why? Paano kung ikaw rin ang nag-aral ng Chinese? You think you could also ace their language? Hindi rin, di ba? It's just a matter of saying that since it's not a part of your first language, okay? Practically speaking, it's not your language. Hindi mo yan lengguwahe. That's why it's very difficult on the part of the teacher to assess that. That is where you have to close your eyes and you ponder. Anong score ang ibibigay ko dito? Wrong naman yung mga pinagsusulat. Pero when I read it, okay. Ma'am, kasi ganito when they write, okay, so objectively we have to check. Ang daming errors talaga. And I couldn't really make sense of what the student is saying. Yan, dito na magkakaroon ka ng problema. Kasi on your part as a teacher, if you could not really make sense of what you are checking, that's a very big problem, right? Now, how will you assess that further? Pwede pa naman, di ba? How do you do it? Orally. You ask the questions orally, di ba? Parang ano to well, we are teachers here, ano? And we have to be open to the fact that there are really special students, right? Inside the classroom, okay? This is like teaching someone who has a learning difficulty, where all spellings are erroneous, you know? When reading a passage just seems to be a Herculean task or a hurdle for them. Pero pag tinanong mo to explain it orally, they can do it. So, may points pa rin ba yun? Yes. Di ba? Kasi pragmatics yan. It falls under pragmatics. Pragmatics is a branch of linguistics that deals with the practical use of language. Okay, practical siya. Gusto niya sa oral. That's where he excels. And do not force if the student could not really do it via writing. Tandaan ninyo yan, ha? Okay, kasi ang tendency niyan, ma-frustrate na yung estudyante, drop out from your class, hindi, isusumpa ka niya. Okay, gusto mo ba yun? Maisumpa ka ng estudyante mo? That's very painful, right? So, to cut the chase shorter, never put a square peg on a round hole. Diba? Huwag mong ipapilit kung hindi nga rod pwede. Huwag mong ipilit. Okay? Hanap ka ng ibang methods. Mamang daya naman yung iba nga nagsusulat. Yung iba. Diba? Hindi nga niya kaya eh. Do you find a way by which you could? Ma'am, dapat nasa special school yan. Oops. Be careful. Okay? There is such a thing as inclusiveness already. So these people who happen to be very special could already be included inside the classroom. There is even such a thing as mainstreaming. Diba? So if you're going to ask me to discuss the two, you enroll in my SPED subject. No, just kidding. Okay, so yun ang point natin. And I agree with you. Yun lang ang ano ko doon, Miss Clarice. Ang hirap i-quantify ang pragmatics. Okay? I don't even know if we could, diba? I don't even know if we could. Pero siguro we could. It's in the border of of being objective and at the same time subjective, but more or skewed to the side of subjectivity. Okay? A teacher should be very subjective. Okay? I have no more further questions. Very good, Miss Clarice and company. We move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Alma Vizcacha. Okay, so yes, indeed, yes, indeed, that is exactly the case. But before we proceed to Group 5, let's hear first the synthesization from Angelica Minas. Miss Angelica.
Hello, naririnig po ba ako?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. To synthesize their paper, to improve our language skills, we have to consider and understand the three-dimensional framework in which structural grammar, semantics, and pragmatics are interconnected and important when giving appropriate activities to encourage the learners to master and work on their own language skills, and that among the 4 grammar innovation assessments, redefining the construct has the most potential for it complement the concept of 3 dimensions of grammar, such as it involves the assessment form, meaning, and use. So as further answer, the implication is that teachers should know how assessment works by focusing on the 3 dimensions and not just one, because the teacher have to assess the students' learning whether they understand and they are able to effectively apply grammar in real life through the use of 4 fundamentals of language skills. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Angelica Minas. Okay, yes, indeed, from Group 4, we can see that there would be cases wherein you need to be flexible and bend some rules, as Miss Alma Vizcacha said. But here's my question: when exactly should we be flexible? When is it appropriate? Could this be answered through the next parts of the symposium? We can only find out as I pass the floor to the next host of this symposium, Miss Clarice Bong-Tiwan. Miss Clarice, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Lewin. Again, good day, everyone. I am Clarice Bong-Tiwan, and I will be taking over of the remaining parts of today's symposium. So now that we are done with the exposition of Group 4, we now give the stage to Group 5 for them to present their paper as well. But before that, may I call the attention of Group 5 to send the link of their academic paper via Zoom chat box. Again, Group 5, please send your academic paper via Zoom chat box.
Oh, and by the way, for our hosts, we need an attendance sheet for today, okay? I hope
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have. Okay, thank you, thank you.
I think the attendance sheet is on Mr. Calvin Venegas' courtesy. Okay, so once see, we already have the link of Group 5's academic paper as well as the attendance sheet. So please fill out the form of the attendance. Thank you. Okay, so while you are filling out the attendance form, I think Mr. Justin Luis Alexis Cababat of Group 5 is now prepared to present their exposition. So, Mr. Justin, you may now take over.
Okay, good day again, Ma'am Alma. Good day, classmates. Our academic paper is entitled Appropriateness of Redefining the Construct and Partial Scoring in Assessing Grammar. Due to the rising changes in the 21st century learning, teaching methods continually change, one of which is in assessing grammar. There is a need to break from what has been perceived on grammar as one of the most difficult skills to teach and learn. Therefore, from traditional assessments that only assess grammatical knowledge, there were proposed two of the innovations in assessing grammar that can assess students whether they can use grammar correctly in real-life speaking or writing. These innovations are redefining the construct and partial scoring. Next slide, please. This academic paper will give light in respect to its title, Appropriateness of Redefining the Construct and Partial Scoring in Assessing Grammar, with the help of guide questions that we aim to answer. First, what type of method redefines the construct? And for the second question, when is partial scoring most appropriate in assessing grammar? Next slide, please. What type of method redefines the construct? This is the first question that we formulated. Let us first define what redefining the construct is. Redefining the construct is an assessment that expands beyond its form to include grammatical meaning. In utilizing this, we are going beyond the assessment of grammatical form and meaning. And to determine what type of method redefines the construct, we included assessment of grammatical use as well. Redefining the construct assesses three components: form, meaning, and use. To answer the first question and make it more relevant, grammaring is the type of method that redefines the construct. What is grammaring? According to Larsen Freeman, grammaring is the ability to use grammar structures accurately, meaningfully, and appropriately as it is the proper goal of grammar instruction. It suggests that using grammar is a dynamic process as it is insufficient for students to notice grammatical structures only. They must also practice meaningful use of grammar in real communication. In this method, grammar is assessed beyond its form and use, wherein meaning that is used in a certain context is also assessed. So when is redefining the construct most appropriate to use? We found out that it is most appropriate when it is put into practice in a classroom setting and in other certain contexts. What is practiced and the way it is practiced will depend on the nature of the learning challenge. Therefore, the students may need pedagogical focus in order to effectively assess their grammar. In assessing grammar, they could be in a ways of challenges in forming meaning or using grammar to observe the accurate, meaningful, and appropriate use of it. According to our findings, we can overcome these challenges by applying redefining the construct when it is most appropriate. Redefining the construct is most appropriate when we put into practice because it helps develop capacity within students. It enables them to move beyond the memorized formulas and static rules. It also helps them acquire a way to create and understand meaning that will enable them to use it accurately in practice. Redefining the construct realizes that grammar is a flexible, incredibly rich system that allows that allows language learners to express meaning in a way appropriate to context, to how they wish to present themselves, and to the particular perspective they wish to contribute. Although accuracy is an issue in grammar, meaningfulness and appropriateness of use and practice is one essential way to prove the significance of redefining the construct. Next slide, please. Partial credit scoring talks about giving partial scores to a single item. A single item can be assessed more accurately. And when we talk about the appropriateness of partial scoring, we must take into consideration two important concepts: dichotomous scoring and polytomous scoring. Dichotomous scoring moves away from partial credit scoring due to its very straightforward approach in scoring. You can only give full credit or zero credit, meaning it only focuses on what is correct and incorrect. Because of this, dichotomous scoring is more appropriate when teaching basic concepts of grammar. According to our findings, it is also appropriate in assessing the grammar of learners with disabilities. Its appropriateness is due to the fact that the grammar assessments of people with autism usually rely on dichotomous scoring. And according to our findings, these assessments that rely on dichotomous scoring result in a higher grammatical accuracy of people with disabilities. Basically, the dichotomous scoring is appropriate in teaching basic concepts of grammar for the general population of students because of its straightforwardness. And it is also appropriate in assessing grammar of people with disabilities because it results to their higher grammatical accuracy. On the other hand, polytomous scoring is related to partial scoring. Polytomous scoring yields information about learners who have an intermediary knowledge of grammar, rather than being treated as if they have no knowledge at all. Polytomous scoring is appropriate when an English teacher wants to accurately measure the grammatical skills of students in writing through essay type of test. This is because according to our findings, polytomous scoring is more reliable in assessing grammar as it allows for a finer evaluation of students' knowledge and it moves away from absolute right or wrong view. To give you an example, we as English teachers can't accurately measure written or oral grammatical proficiency of students through dichotomous type of tests, such as true or false. As English teachers, we can't entirely be sure that the students are only guessing right or wrong answers. According to our findings, if you don't want this case to happen, you should use polytomous type of scoring. Therefore, the appropriateness of polytomous scoring is when you want accurate answers from your students. Next slide, please. In light of the findings presented in our academic paper, we concluded that redefining the construct is most appropriate when practicing grammar in a classroom setting or other contexts using grammaring approach. In order for the learners to grammatical competence to be holistically assessed, teachers should not only focus on the learner's grammatical knowledge, but also include their pragmatic knowledge. Next slide, please. Partial scoring is most effective when assessing or catering to the individual learning of the general population of students. It is not effective in the minority, such as people with disabilities. With the support of partial scoring, teachers will be able to contribute to the mental resources of learners by focusing on the importance of providing positive feedback. Next slide, please. To wrap it all up, I'll leave you this quote from Christensen. Tools are only as good as our reasons and methods for using them. Redefining the construct and partial scoring are important innovations or proposals when it comes to assessing grammar. However, they are only tools, and while there may be cases that they are effective, there are also times that they are not. Therefore, teachers should employ redefining the construct and partial scoring in grammar assessment when they are most appropriate. That's all for our group. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you, Mr. Justin, and of course, Group 5 for that well-discussed presentation. Now we call Ms. Desiree Anverde, the facilitator from Group 6, for the Q&A portion. Miss Desiree, you may now drop your question.
Okay, so according to your paper, it was said that teachers continually have to change their teaching methods to cope with the rapid change of the world in terms of education. So for the question, can you give a unique and effective style or method in teaching grammar to have a fruitful and successful learning? Again, can you give a unique and effective style or method in teaching grammar to have a fruitful and successful learning?
Okay, so according to our findings, as presented a while ago, one unique situation wherein our paper would be very relevant for your jobs as future teachers would be the dichotomous scoring and polytomous scoring. As presented a while ago by Justin, dichotomous scoring is very effective when we teach the basic concepts of grammar. So as the world changes, as the world of education changes, you can see here that there are many times wherein our teaching styles aren't as effective as it used to be before. So, but according to our findings, when you want to teach the basic concepts of grammar, use the dichotomous types of scoring under partial scoring. That's dichotomous scoring. When you want to teach, for example, what exactly are the nouns? Is this word in the sentence a noun? When teaching those types of concepts, use dichotomous types of scoring. For example, the true or false, those types of tests. On the other hand,
please unmute your microphone. I think that's Miss Mary.
Okay, so on the other hand, on the other hand, while according to our findings, while dichotomous scoring may be very effective on teaching the basic concepts of grammar, it's not effective on teaching the complex topics or complex topics on assessing grammar. But however, that's only to the general population. For example, if you as an English teacher would become a SPED teacher, for example, in a SPED teacher in English, if you want to accurately assess grammar from people with disabilities, the best choice for you in teaching and assessing grammar would be the dichotomous type of scoring. That's the best way for you to assess the grammar with people with disabilities, because according to our findings again, is that people with disabilities tend to have higher grammatical competence and higher grammatical efficiency when they are given these types of assessment, such as, true or false, those types of tests. However, if you are an English teacher, for example, for the general population, for example, in a public school, the best way to teach and assess grammar in the complex topics of grammar, such as the pragmatics or the syntax, for example, as discussed by Group 4 a while ago. When you want to teach those topics, such as those three dimensions, the best way for you to assess would be the polytomous type of scoring or the partial credit scoring itself, wherein multiple choices are given or multiple scoring is given. Because in polytomous types of scoring, or in partial credit scoring itself, your assessment of the grammar of your students is finer or is more accurate, because is more accurate. That is according to our findings. So that's also, if you want. So basically, the application is for since the world of education is changing, and there would be many cases wherein you would find yourself in job party, I guess, when there would be many cases wherein you would find yourself thinking, when is this methods applicable, or when are these methods more appropriate, or when should I be flexible, or when should I bend the rules, just as stated in Group 4's presentation before. the basic answer for this would be, if you want to teach the basic concepts of grammar, or if you want to teach the basic concepts of grammar in the general population, the best way for you is through the is through the dichotomous part of scoring in the partial credit scoring. And if you are a SPED teacher in English, you would choose the dichotomous scoring or the true or false types of tests. Those are the assessments that you want to give to your students, with disabilities. On the other hand, polytomous scoring, if you want to teach students the complexities of grammar, and if you want to assess how exactly or how much did your students learn about the complexities of grammar, use the polytomous scoring or use the partial credit scoring in assessing grammar. That's all. I think, does that answer your question, Miss Desiree?
Yes, I completely agree with your answer. Thank you for that,
Okay,
Lewin.
thank you, Rin. I think Ma'am Alma and Jericho has something to say. Ma'am Alma muna, kasi siya yung una ata nag-raise.
Okay. Please do not get me wrong. One of the main reasons why I asked you to do a symposium is to really practice you, my dear students, in how to speak, both in virtual sessions, or maybe you could even carry it out when you are already doing your face-to-face teaching, your live demo teaching and the likes. The question of Miss Desiree was not answered by you, and I do not know why Desiree agreed with your answer. Miss Desiree, that was not your question, right? Your question is, I was supposed to cut you there a while ago, but I was thinking that the one who will answer will correct your very own question, because your question is, what teaching strategy? Right? That's what your question was all about, Miss Desiree, in order for you to assess. The answer of Mr. Lewin is about assessment. Your question is about teaching. How do you make sense of that?
Okay.
The one I'm going to ask now is the one who asked the question. I want Miss Desiree to make sense of the answer of Mr. Lewin, because he said you completely agree. What are you agreeing about, Miss Desiree?
Ma'am, since he discussed po about the use of construct and partial scoring in teaching po, we considered it because according to their paper po, ma'am, it is included po and it can be used po in teaching. Yes po, sa appropriateness.
Okay.
That's it po, ma'am.
Oo, kasi yung question mo deals with teaching, teaching. Kasi in the world of teaching, there is such a thing as teaching itself as opposed to assessment. Magkaiba yan my dear students. Iba yung teaching, you employ the use of strategies. Ano yung mga strategies na yan? Okay, maraming strategies. You have approaches, yung mga approaches mo to teaching, di ba? Kunwari, are you going to make use of audiolingual method, total physical response, gagamit ka ba ng grammar translation method? Yan ang mga approaches mo, yan ang mga strategies mo. Okay, if you're going to ask me, ma'am, ikaw, ano ang strategy na usually na ginagamit mo? I like audiolingual. Bakit? Virtual di ba? How can I see if you are really listening to me? Naka-turn off nga mga cameras ninyo di ba? And I could not force my students to turn on their cameras. Pero lang if we have a photo ops at the end of every session, di ba? So I make use of audiolingual. Kaya iba ang teaching, iba ang assessing. Para siyang two different worlds. But they are a part of that teaching learning process. Diba? Kasi sa lesson planning, I know you're finished doing your lesson plans, right? You already know how to do your lesson plans. In the lesson planning, diba, you have an objective. Okay? Ang one of the parts of your objective is assessment, diba? Kasali yan dun sa may iyong lesson planning, okay? And then Other than that, you have subject matter and then how you would execute it. The execution falls under procedure, and that's where your strategies will come in, your techniques will come in. There's even a very big difference about teaching method, teaching strategies, and techniques. Iba-iba lahat yan. Okay? But what teachers usually use is their own strategy. Lahat ng teachers may strategy. Di ba? Iba-iba tayo. Napansin nyo ba yan? Ang bawat teachers, iba-iba ang strategy. Yung iba, pabasa lang ng module. That's their strategy. Di ba? Strategy nila yon. Bakit? They have an objective. Okay? I would say na wrong yan. May objective yan. What's the objective? Gusto niya, magaling kayong mag-analyze on your own. That's independent learning, 'di ba? Parang UPian style, 'di ba? Even when we were studying in the other university, ganyan, read chapter 2. Agasa? 50 pages minsan basahin mo on your own. Bahala ka sa buhay mo. Kung di mo naintindihan, sorry ka na lang, 'di ba? Change your major, parang ganon. I remember that. Okay? Yun ang tinatawag na strategy. Okay, that strategy falls under a particular technique. Diba? Anong technique yan? Independent learning technique. Yan ang technique. And that technique falls under a particular approach or a particular method. Anong method yan? Well, siguro it's more on, since you are dealing with the content and that you are not inside the classroom, it's more for using technology, ICT. O yun ang yun ang method ko ngayon na gagamitin ko, 'di ba? Kasi mag-isa ka, magbasa ka, hanap ka ng sagot sa internet. Ganon, 'di ba? Kaya yun ang ko kanina, sabi ko bakit naiba yung sagot. Although I get your point. I get the point of Desiree, I even get the point of Lewin. Yun lang, ang question ko, how do you jibe the question with the answer that was given to you? Okay, although Desiree made mention of the word appropriateness. So yung appropriateness daw nung Lewin, nung technique na yun? Anong ibig mong sabihin na appropriateness, Desiree? Medyo talaga ako doon, nalito ako eh. Kaso I could not cut any of the speakers a while ago. Ano ulit yung point mo, Desiree? Well, how did you conjoin those two ideas together? Yung question mo plus yung answer ni Lewin?
Ma'am, it was based on their title po kasi na appropriateness of redefining the construct and partial scoring in assessing grammar. So yung answer po ni Lewin, kinonect niya po kasi yung gamit ng construct and partial scoring.
Yes, I get it. And yun ang sagot niya. Pero how does that answer your question?
Ma'am, by the use of those different strategies po kasi, it can be applied inside the...
So, you are referring to the strategies of assessment. Is that what you mean?
Ma'am, yes, the use of different strategies.
Kasi ang ginamit mo kanina, strategies of teachers in teaching. Kaya sabi ko, dapat right there and then ikakat kita. Pero sabi ko, sige nga, tignan ko nga kung anong isasagot dito ni Lewin. Now, we understand your point already. So you are asking Miss Desiree about the strategy of assessment. Is that your point?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay. Now, ngayon, may connection na talaga. Well explained na yung answer, di ba? Kasi kung ang tatanungin natin kanina is the strategy of teaching, maiba yun, iba yun. I will caution you, my dear students, magkaiba yan. Although I told you, they both belong to the world of teaching, learning process. Kasi yan, parehong yan, nasa may lesson planning. Okay? Di ba may part sa lesson plan? What part of the lesson plan, group 4, is for assessment? What part of you're done with lesson planning, I suppose. You're already in second year, about to go to third year. So nagkaroon na kayo ng subject on LP making or lesson plan making, right? What part of the lesson plan is where the assessment falls? Just make mention from the different parts of your LP. Nasaan yung assessment?
Group 4, Group 5.
Ay, group 5. Sorry. Group 5.
Ma'am, yung sa part po ng evaluation.
Exactly. Okay, so andun siya kay evaluation. So it means to say that na-answer mo nga Rod Lewin kanina. Kasi kanina I could not make sense of it. Okay, so thank you very much for your clarification, Miss Desiree. Now I am more clarified about the
May I just add po?
Okay, sure.
A while ago, a while ago, Desiree asked what exactly is if I can give a teaching strategy. Teaching strategy. I think one teaching strategy would be, as mentioned a while ago in the interaction of group 4, is that there are times when you need to, bend some rules. There are times when you need to be flexible. There are times when you need to be flexible. That is
I highlighted that, diba? I highlighted it to you.
That is one teaching strategy, and to support that teaching strategy is this academic paper. You would know when you would be flexible. You would know when you should break the rules, and you would know when exactly can I use this through this academic paper. The appropriateness of redefining the construct and partial scoring.
Kaya nga meron akong favor from you, okay, my dear students. English Ed 111 GC is a very rich GC. Okay, kung ako sa inyo, do not leave that. Pakikinabangan ninyo ang GC na yan. You know why? There are links there. Remember, yung mga academic papers na yan, you could use it. Okay? What else? Meron tayong mga supplementary doon, notices or whatever that you could make use of. So kayo, those who are presenting the academic papers, all of you, send the link back to the GC. You could use it in your research paper making. I am telling you, okay, Ma'am Jang and I were talking yesterday, and she said, ang gagaling nila. Sabi niya, yes. Sabi ko, they're really very bright students. Sabi ko, and iniisip na niya tuloy kung paano namin gagawin ng research. Ilang groups yan? Wala, 6 lang ito. Sabi ko, kasi syempre I could not create another group for the research paper. How will I do that? They are already comfortable with their groups. So siguro, sabi ko, the best way that the research teacher could do is to break the groups. Sabi ko, kasi alam mo, sabi ko, in one group, they have 2 topics. Sabi ko, they have 2 things to explain. So maybe the best thing that the teacher could do is to break that and maybe ask them if they could still formulate another question for each of the topics to compromise for the 2 SOP. Sabi niya, sige, pag-aralan nga natin yan. Kaso lang, syempre, tumigil na kami ng kakasalita kasi sabi ko, maybe not talk about academics, please, because I'm already exhausted talking about academics. Maybe we could talk about something else. Maybe we could talk about when can we eat again, okay? Or when can we go out again? And we were both laughing. And then we said, oo nga naman, sabi. Pero she's already thinking about that, okay? So sabi ko, kayang mag-defend ng mga yan. Although, sabi ko, I have to be very honest with you, I did not really follow the structure of the research paper. Bakit? Wow, hindi naman ito research paper subject. Sabi ko, this is just a major subject. Okay, I just incorporated this so that the students will be fully aware of how researching goes. And happy naman siya. O nga sabi niya, ang galing rin, ano? Sabi niya, yeah. Sabi ko, at least they already know anti-plagiarism na yung mga yan because we have been insisting na it's okay if you get ideas from different papers, it doesn't matter as long as you acknowledge it. Okay? So I am okay with group 5. Pero meron akong question. Is that okay, group 5? Ay, sandali muna. Pwede ba muna nating pakinggan si Mr. Barros has been raising his hand a while ago. Jericho, what is the point, Jericho?
It's because my my curiosity is kicking in.
Okay.
Now, there's this in our curriculum wherein there is
your curriculum. You're talking about BSED?
Yes, K-12 curriculum po.
Okay.
Wherein there's this inclusive education wherein we include everyone there, and there's this quote, no child is left behind. So your paper seems, I mean, your conclusion seems to seems to divide um assessing what do you call this, special students? Am I right?
Yes.
And so
Ay,
we
kala
have
ko
this
paper ko yun, sorry.
we have this di ba? We have now the inclusive education wherein in a classroom there would be also SPED students that would be included. So when are we going to use
That's a very
those
good
types
question.
of assessment, or are we going to use both of them para yung ba sabi niyo yung isa para lang sa SPED and the other one is for the students who are not lacking or kasi parang pangit kasi sabihing special child sila pero
Yeah.
yun
No,
parang ganun.
they are special.
They are special.
Yes
They
po, pero
accept
di ba
the term.
yes. So when are we going to use those assessments in those type of situations na andun yung sa classroom natin, there's this type of students na nag-interact within us and sa students as well.
I think Justin has an answer. Justin.
So thank you for that question, Mr. Jericho. Dun po sa mga na-construct na questions, it talks about appropriateness. It doesn't exactly say na this is for, tapos parang may specific na types of students na ginagamitan ng ganitong assessment. Our conclusion is more on the appropriateness but not specifically used doon sa type lang ng
But
tao na
not
yun.
limited.
Yes,
Yun
but
ang
not
tawag
limited.
doon. Yes.
It is more appropriate means it can be appropriate yung dichotomous, it can be appropriate din sa complex learners.
Tama.
Yung polytymous, it can be appropriate din doon sa special learners with special needs. Now parang to answer question na meron na inclusivity ngayon.
Yes.
Ngayon, kung as a teacher, it is my responsibility to know if that learner with special needs can cope dun sa paggamit ko ng polytymous, then I will use that polytymous. If I know that he or she can adapt, ganun. Or if
yan, okay.
or if not, dichotomous, parang ganun po.
Tama. Kasi Mr. Jericho, you know, the world of inclusivity and mainstreaming is very complex, very complex. It's really very difficult on the part of a teacher to be catering to a class that's inclusive. Ay, ang hirap niyan. Okay, why? Okay, there's really a division inside the classroom. No matter what you do, they are included inside the classroom. But in terms of, number 1, lessons, number 2, activities, number 3, assessment, there is really a division. No matter what you do as a teacher, I cannot really attest if these teachers give the same activities that they give to their regular students to their learners with special needs. Hindi. Magkaiba talaga, Jericho. It's really, yan, kaya nga, a part of your curriculum in being a teacher, regardless of major, should be a knowledge about special education. Meron ba kayong SPED subjects? English
I think ma'am,
majors?
tapos na po yung nung Prof.
Pero
Ed
meron,
103
diba?
po ata. Ay, wala. Meron ba?
Wala kayong
Wala
in
po
your
ata, ma'am,
Prof.
pero
Ed.
natakal lang
Hindi
po
sa
kasi
major,
si Prof.
hindi sa
Ed.
major, syempre sa Prof. Ed.
Sa Prof. Ed po. Natakal lang po.
Dapat talaga alam ninyo kahit kaunti. You know, I will encourage you. Alam nyo, of all the majors to double, SPED at English ang the best talaga. Ang gandang pagsamahin. Pero syempre, grandeur of time. I know that. Alangan naman, ma'am, nag-major ka na nga ng English, di ka pa nga nakagraduate, nag-major ka man ng TESPED. Oo, naintindihan ko. That's why I feel like it would be best if you read something about it. Pero Mr. Jericho, I assure you, there will really be a distinction between the regulars and the LSAs. Iba ang pag-assess sa may special. Iba. Okay? If I told you a while ago, you have to be forgiving. Pag LSEN na ang pinag-uusapan dito, especially those learners with difficulties, nako, you have to be more than forgiving. I don't already know what term I will use other than forgiving. Iba kasi sila. Now, hinahanap mo, ma'am, so kung yan, ano lang, dichotomous talaga. Alam mo, sabi ni Justin kanina, you could make use of polytomous when you are doing special also. Pwede. Pag lahat sila special. Yan, gawa ka ng special rubric mo, di ba? Gawa ka ng special rubric mo. Spelling, okay, gawa ka ng rubric. Maaaring perfect score in spelling is 10. What's the meaning of this? Siyempre, you are creating a rubric, not a criteria. Okay, that's the difference between the two, di ba? 10. Makakakuha sila ng 10, which is a perfect score for spelling if and only if they have errors from 2 to 3 items. O di ba? Pang special yan. Bakit? You are still making room for errors, pero may perfect score. Kasi pag pinaghalo mo yung regular at saka tapos parehong activities, ay wala kawawa naman si Elsen, 'di ba? Nandito lang si Elsen, nandito naman sa taas si si regular, 'di ba? Magkaiba talaga. So you could still use inside a regular classroom where an inclusive classroom, ayun pala ang proper term. Sorry, but you could make use of dichotomous better kasi magkaiba talaga ng yan. Number 2, wala namang problema dyan Jericho. Ibahin mo ang activity mo para kay Elsen. Yes, ibahin mo. Sasabihin mo, alam ma'am, doble na yung trabaho namin. Hindi doble, triple. Okay? Hindi lang doble, triplehin mo yung pasensya mo at yung pagod mo. Okay? Ma'am, ba't kasi sila nandirito sa may regular classroom? Alam ko na naman, tatanungin nyo na, punta nga kayo sa SPED. Programa ng gobyerno yan. That's the program of DepEd. Okay? Sometimes you mainstream them, sometimes you include them. What's the difference between the two? Ang inclusivity, they are diagnosed. And they have to stay there inside your classroom by hook or by crook. Mainstream, pwede silang i-pull out. You get the point here? Yung mga inclusive, they stay in your classroom until the end of the school year. Not until they drop. Siyempre, you're not going to give them a hint to drop, but usually they do. Why? Na-frustrate sila inside an inclusive classroom. Hindi sila makakope with the challenges. Nahihirapan silang makipagsabayan, di ba? And you think that they are special, they wouldn't feel that. Of course they do. They are more sensitive than us in terms of that. They know that they are odd. They know that they are different. Nafe-feel naman nila yan. So, at their end, minsan sila na rin yung bumibigay. Ayoko na dito. Mami, ayoko na mag-aral. Bakit? Nahirapan na ako talaga. Okay. So, yung si mainstream, pwedeng i-pull out anytime. Okay? Nang sino, ma'am, what do you mean pull out? O kasama mo siya, andun siya, yung learner with special education needs inside your classroom. Ngayon, may dumating na from DSWD, from Philippine Mental Health Association. Kukunin ko po si Ms. Biscocho kasi pagkat siya ay meron siyang special needs. We have to bring her to a special school. Ganon ang pagkakaiba ng dalawa na yun. There's a very big difference. Pero talaga, Jericho, I'm sorry, I'm sad to tell you, meron talagang ganon. You could make use of both inside the classroom, pero pag pinagpilitan mong polytomous sa loob ng classroom, Jericho, no. You are killing the special child inside the classroom. Okay? Paalisin mo na lang kung talagang nahihirapan ka, talk to your superior and then tell your superior, maybe, just maybe, he would be better in a different classroom. Ganon talaga. Ngayon kung sasabihin nyo, manghirap naman, di ba? Noon pa lang first year kayo, sinasabi ko na, if you do not have the heart for teaching, you go to engineering. No, just kidding. Punta ka sa iba, di ba? Punta ka sa iba. Kasi iba sa teaching. Teaching is entirely different. Okay. You watch Teddy Stallard. Of course, you have watched it already, right? Have you watched Teddy Stallard? Napanood
Yes,
nyo na ba
ma'am.
yan? Yes. Okay. You revisit it. Okay. So, you will have the heart for teaching. Iba kasi ang teaching. Okay? Yung bankero ka, yung nag-graduate ka sa banking and finance, nandun ka sa bangko, pera lang kaharap mo. Naks lang ba sa'yo ang pera, ma'am? Of course not. Di ka naman makalabas ng bahay kung wala kang pera eh. Di ba? It's very important. Pero pera lang ang kaharap mo. Yung sa nurse, oo, pero meron kang kasamang doktor. Tao ang hawak mo dyan, di ba? Pero yung teaching nga, yan ang hinahawakan mo. May tao na, may puso pa, may soul, may heart, may brain, may lahat nandiyan dyan. That's why you have to be very careful. Okay? Increase your knowledge about special education, please, during the academic break. Why not, right? Let's read a little something about special education. SPED is very close to my heart. Okay? Mahal na mahal ko ang SPED. I do not know why. Dapat yun ang major ko eh. Pero during our time, wala pang SPED. Okay? Alam nyo na, it's been ages. Okay? So, did we answer your question? By the way, Jericho, ang dami kong pinagtatanong. Did we answer your question, Jericho?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm a little bit enlightened po.
Oh.
Thank you, Justin and Lewin.
Yes. It seems to me like even my question sinagasaan na nung mga tanong kanina. Okay, because my question is very simple lang naman. My question is this. Although I heard the answer a while ago, Justin discussed it already. For my students who belong to the English major class, kayo are na lahat ng majors ko. What should I use? Dichotomous or polytomous?
Ma'am, ano po? Wait lang, choppy po.
Okay. For all my major subjects, for example, what should I use? Polytomous or dichotomous? Yes.
For assessing grammar, ma'am.
No. All my subjects, teaching and assessment of grammar, study of linguistics, Philippine literature, Afro-Asian literature, lahat ng mga subjects ng English. What do you think should be used in assessing my students?
Ma'am, both po. Kasi as stated on the academic paper, there are times when dichotomous scoring would be very appropriate, such as teaching the basic topics about assessing grammar, and then on the other hand, polytomous scoring is very effective, is very appropriate when assessing grammar, when we talk about complex topics such as yung syntax. You can't measure syntax, you can't measure sentence.
So what's the dividing line? I get your point. What's the dividing line? How do I know if I should be polytomous or dichotomous? There is a dividing line. Where?
Justin has an answer po, ma'am.
Okay, Justin.
Ma'am, hello po. Ma'am, for me, the dividing line will be, if you are teaching about, example, ma'am, when you are teaching about literature, it talks about facts, it talks about facts, it talks about authors, names, ganun, ma'am. Since it is considered as basic concepts, you can use polytomous. Now, here in our subject, you are teaching about assessing grammar. Since you are teaching about grammar, which is considered as complex concepts, you will now use polytomous scoring.
Ganon yan. You have to draw the line. Diba? Kung ang tinuturo mo technical writing, syempre naman technical writing, you need to be very technical here. May grammar, may spelling, punctuation marks, the use of diction, proper word, vocabulary building, and all. That one you have to be polytomous siguro kasi precise ito eh. Pero yung pag-literature, alam niyo naman ang literature. Nobody could go wrong with literature. Am I correct, Mr. Kababat? Nobody goes wrong with literature. Di ba? The insight of Justine is not the same as the insight of Lewin, for example. That's when you have to bend a little. Okay, you answered all our questions. Very good discussion, Group 5. Okay, thank you very much, Miss Clarice. Let's go to the last.
Okay, so I must say that was a fruitful Q&A portion. I love how we touched Prof Ed areas, like we had a recall on those, especially in inclusive education. So before we proceed to the next group, Ms. Desiree, please drop your synthesis on the answers of group 5. Thank you.
Okay, so it is indeed that redefining the construct and partial scoring are important innovations and proposals when it comes to assessing
Wait a
grammar.
minute, Desiree. Putol nga yung mukha mo sa may ano. Sayang naman yung chance that you are turning on your camera. Could you fix that for a while, please?
Okay, so while Miss Desiree is fixing, please fill out the attendance form. Again, please fill out the attendance form that was sent in our Zoom chat box. Thank you.
Okay, so to synthesize the paper of group 5, indeed, redefining the construct and partial scoring are important innovations and proposals when it comes to assessing grammar, especially when it is used when they are most appropriate. And with that, we can see the importance of different strategies in teaching so we can address the learning needs of the students and for them to increase their appreciation and understanding of the grammar and language as well. Thank you so much, Ma'am Alma and Group 5.
Yes, thank you to Group 5, and thank you also to Desiree as well as to Ma'am Alma and to Mr. Barros. Okay, so before we proceed to Group 6, let us first give them a virtual clap. Yay! Okay, so speaking of Group 6, a while back, the last but not the least, of course, who will present today is Miss Strawberry Lapadik, the group's presenter. But again, before anything else, Group 6, please send in your academic paper in the Zoom chat box. Again, please send the link of your academic paper in the Zoom chat box. Thank you. Okay. So, Miss Strawberry, I know you are all prepared since last night. So now the floor is yours. Miss Strawberry.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am Strawberry Lapadik and I'll be presenting the abstract of our academic paper. So our academic paper is entitled Social Dimension in Assessing Grammar Effectively with the Use of Standard. So next slide, please. So starting off with our introduction, in learning a language, age, gender, and socioeconomic class and also ethnic identification are all social factors that can influence language acquisition, which is enclosed in the social dimension. In this study, there are 4 parts of the social dimension for analysis in assessing grammar effectively with the use of standard. These are first, the social distance, wherein it is concerned with participant relationships. Second is social distance scale, wherein it is a status scale concerned with participant relationships, a formality scale relating to the setting or type of interaction, and lastly, we have the two-way functional scales wherein it relates to the purposes or topic of interaction. They are basic components in social linguistic explanations of why we don't all speak the same way. A standard language can also be used in providing a means of communication between speakers of different dialects, where dialects are mutually unintelligible. So our academic paper aims to answer the following. First is, how will you assess grammar effectively with the use of social dimensions? And second, what is the standard of assessing grammar effectively? So in our findings in SOP1, we have discovered that grammar can be assessed through the 4 dimensions of social dimension, which are social distance, status, formality, and two-way functional. The characteristics of this context are the effects of how language is used. For us in SOP2, we have explored that another issue that could be discussed under assessing grammar or testing is the issue of what the standard is. For instance, some researchers have claimed that as English increasingly becomes the language of communication between non-native speakers, it is likely that ungrammatical but unproblematic constructions, such as "he looks very sad" and "a picture who gives the impression," once they exist sufficiently in non-native speaker discourse, would arguably become standardized and exist as a variety alongside English as a native language. So as to conclude, first is the social dimensions of language in assessing grammar effectively aided us, the researchers, to understand what influences how people interact in flexible learning. The concepts underlying the four dimensions impact how individuals communicate, often without them realizing why, or how they adjust to different language contexts. Second is that the standard is important in language. It will help us to know the proper usage of the language based on its origin. The English language has its own standard, how to form a sentence in various forms, and that is the same with different languages. When assessing grammar, we must comply with the rules of the usage of the language, and we cannot incorporate the different rules or else it will not be a standard. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so nice one, Group 6. That was also well presented. So at this moment, we are about to proceed to the third Q&A portion. So may I call the attention of Group 1's Miss Pamela Calado, who is in charge of the question for Group 6. Miss Pamela, you may now begin.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Ay, happy lunch pala. May I ask if I am audible po?
Yes, you are.
Yes po. So, for Group 6, in your research, you discussed the social dimensions and its effects on having a standard language. However, in your conclusion, I think you have failed to mention the connection between the two. So you said that social dimension help us determine how individuals communicate. So okay, and that standardization is important to know the proper usage of language. So that is also okay. But my question is, considering the general influence of social dimensions to the learning of a standard language, is it more on the negative side or is it more on the positive side? And why do you think so? So again, I repeat my question. Considering the general influence of social dimensions to the learning of a standard language, is it more on the negative side or is it more on the positive side?
Okay, so, well, Miss Pamela, before Ma'am Alma takes over the Q&A, I'm sorry for that. Miss Strawberry, your answer, Group 6.
Hello po.
Okay, Mr. Jake.
All right, so for me, it's more on positive. Why positive? Because social dimensions lead every country to connect with one standard only. Because we have what we call this lingua franca, right? That's why, because of standard, we omit or we exclude unintelligible language or misconception. That's why, because of standard, we are unite together and we intend to use only the standard to understand what what we are conveying to each other. Thank you.
Well, Miss Pamela, are you satisfied with the answer of Mr. Jake? Do you have any follow-up question or anything to make things clearer?
Wala na po bang addition?
Okay, so Miss Pamela is asking for additional information. Group 6. Anything you would wish to add to satisfy Miss Pamela, of course?
Group 6, please.
The members of Group 6, please unmute your microphone. You should also participate in the Q&A portion. Other members?
For the addition, it is more on the positive side since using standard can make a connection between the two different language.
Okay, so Miss Pamela, how about that?
What is two different language? What do you mean? Who's
Okay,
the one
so
who said that? Sorry, I was naka-minimize yung Zoom ko. I was reading something. What is that? Ano yung two language? I don't get it.
Group 6, any response to Miss Alma? Okay, so while Group 6 is preparing, I would like to remind everyone to please fill out the attendance form. Thank you.
Group 6.
I mean, I think what Strawberry portrayed to say is that the two languages, which is because of two languages like the foreign languages and the actual languages of the other country, because of standard, it might be understandable for each country.
So my question po kasi is I think what you're saying is having a standard language is positive, but my question is how do social dimensions positively affect the learning of a standard language?
Group 6, any response to that? The other members? Unmute, yes, unmute your microphone if you have something to say.
Okay, so as we researched, there are 4 types of social dimension. Status, social distance, formality, and two-way functional. So you have 4 ways to, that is a positive side. So you have 4 ways to, for student to learn how to assess grammar. So in this social dimension, it is mostly in oral communication. So in a positive side, the student can identify grammar by observing their attitude, their behavior, and the way they use language, if it is slang or if it's formality. So you can identify it positively agad, if ever.
Okay, so thank you for that, Miss Faye. I think was that okay, Miss Pamela?
Yes, well, let's proceed po to the next question. Thank you.
Okay, so Ma'am Alma, it's now your turn to make things clearer about Group 6 academic paper. Thank you.
Okay. Group 6, I have a question. Could you explain very briefly to us what social dimension is? And why is this a part of assessment of grammar? Bakit natin ito inaaral when our subject is supposed to be teaching and assessment of grammar? Why are we talking about status? Okay, being a part of social dimension in assessing grammar. Ano ba yung what is social dimension? In the simplest explanation that you can give us, so we can make sense of your paper.
Group 6.
Okay, ma'am. So, according to Holmes, in social linguistic, social dimension are the characteristics of the context that affect how language is used. So, in the experience in real world, in works, in everyday conversation, we can use this, especially the 4 types. So we can especially use this in everyday conversation already.
Okay. And what are these dimensions that you are talking about? What are the 4 dimensions that you made mention of a while back?
Okay, ma'am. Okay. The four dimension of social dimension are status scale, social distance scale, formality scale, and two-way function.
Ano yang mga yan? Ano yung social scale, status scale na sinasabi mo? Explain nyo nga yan. Very briefly. Because in your explanation a while ago, we did not understand it. I have to be very honest, ha? Ako, I really listen very intently. I take down notes. Hindi ko naintindihan. You explain, re-explain it to us. I will be the one to guide you, elicit the answers from you. Sige. Ano yung una na diniscuss? Ano yung unang type of social dimension? What is this all about?
Social distance. So the first type is social distance. This level of acceptance is defined by their general feelings toward others and the amount of social interaction they have with people whose characteristics are outside of their social norm.
Okay, that's it. That's a good description. What's next?
Okay, so secondly is the status. In assessing grammar and status, assessing grammar with the use of the status scale points to the relevance of relative status in some linguistic choices. For instance, someone signaled that the school principal was of higher status and entitled to respect terms, but then Miss Margaret, this is for an example situation, but then Miss Margaret addressed the principal with her first name. So I think that's the not the appropriate term.
What's the name of this again?
Miss Margaret.
No. I mean that particular dimension.
Status po.
Okay, next, number 3.
Okay, so thirdly is formality. Formality can be used in assessing grammar in many ways, especially through writing and communicating. For example, in this setting, like in this classroom setting, panel discussion, we can intend to use formality.
Formal. Okay, Kat, we understand that. Informal friends. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next.
And the last one is too functional. The amount of information shared in speech is measured by the referential. So in this type, we intend to wait lang, sorry.
Oh, you're talking about referential. What does it mean?
Yung to referential po is, wait lang, nawala.
Okay, ma'am. So for two-way functional, we have 2 parts, no? Referential and affective. First, referential is about how a speaker convey words through facts, while affective is the speaker is using his emotion in the conversation.
Okay, we get your point. That's social dimension. Tama? Group 6?
Two-way functional, ma'am.
Oo nga, pero it falls under social dimension, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You are talking about social dimension, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's go to standard. Ano ang standard? What is the standard for assessing grammar? Kasi dalawang topics ninyo eh. Okay? Kailangan malaman namin. Gusto ko na in the simplest way. Kasi kanina hindi ko talaga naintindihan ang explanation. What standard?
So another issue that could be discussed in our research under assessing grammar or testing is the issue of what the target standard is. For instance, some researchers have claimed that as English increasingly becomes the language of communication between non-native speakers, it is likely that ungrammatical but unproblematic constructions. So for me, standards means that just like what we have learned in by what we had learned to Ma'am Wanbe, there are some lexicographers who intend to construct a standard dictionary that we are using in assessing grammar.
Okay. In assessing grammar, there is always a standard. Am I correct, Group 6?
Yes, ma'am.
Who sets the standard? Mag-what, where, when, why, and who tayo para mas madali. Who sets the standards? Kasi sa social dimension, it's not a very difficult thing to note. Okay? When you speak about social dimension and you are talking about assessment of grammar, syempre there's always a social dimension to it, di ba? For example, okay, how I speak to someone else differs from how I speak to another somebody, di ba? Kasi yan, ano yan eh, that's a part of our social dimension. Now, if your question is, Ma'am, what's the job of social dimension in assessment of grammar? Malaki. Go back to pragmatics. Do you remember our pragmatics a while ago, di ba? How one uses the language is greatly affected by his very own perception of the language. Kasi nga, you're using it only for practical reasons. For example, when you order in McDonald's, for example, di ba? When you order in McDonald's and you try to call the crew member sir. Subukan mo lang. Tingnan mo, magte-tame mas maganda ang outcome of your ordering, di ba? Bakit? Kasi that's a part of the social dimension. Ang society is bound by its different dimensions. How you relate your own experiences to other people and vice versa, di ba? And now if you're going to ask me, ma'am, nasan pa rin si assessment of grammar dyan? Siyempre, that could be seen in the activities that you give inside the classroom. Okay, pag ba sumagot ng essay, question. Pag ba sumagot ng essay, dapat nakaparagraph or hindi? Group 6.
Nakaparagraph po, ma'am, kasi yun po yung standard way.
Exactly, di ba? Kahit sa ang dimension mo yan tignan, yun ang parameters in writing a paragraph. It has to be indented, it has to be ganito, okay? In fact, I even remember, if my memory will serve me right, nung pinaka last meeting yata natin, di ba? Someone asked me, ma'am, chine-check yung research paper namin, nakalagay lang dito, indent. Ma'am, yun lang ba yung wrong? Okay, do you remember that? And then what did I tell you? That's not a part of my criteria. Okay, it's not a part of my criteria to feed you all the information in the yun nga ang graduhan ko di ba? Okay, pero here, the standard suggests, for example, that when you answer an essay, it has to be in an essay form. Ano bang essay? Okay, essay is always in paragraph form. Always, regardless of where you go. Even if you go to Africa, yung essay, isa lang ang ibig sabihin yan. It's a short composition. It has to be indented. Okay, fine. Alam mo na ngayon, di ba? Now, papasok ngayon si social dimension. Okay? Bigyan ko kayo ng scenario, group 6. Nag-submit ng essay sa'yo ang principal mo. Kunwari, and the principal did not follow the rudiments grammar writing. For example, hindi naka-indent, hindi nakaganito, hindi nakaganyan. Okay? So, itatouch mo ngayon si social dimension. Kaya mo bang sabihin, for example, group 6 kay Miss or Mr. Principal na mali siya? Gusto kong malaman. Kaya mo bang sabihin, ma'am, I think you are erroneous in the way you constructed your essay and that we feel that you have to undergo a webinar on paragraph writing? Kaya mo bang sabihin yan sa principal mo?
Yes, ma'am, but in our respective manner.
Okay, very good if you could say that. Diba? Sabi niya, respective manner. Now, what Mr. Jake is doing is correcting or assessing something, making use of the social dimension. Di ba? Every time you assess, you have to check the social dimension. Another question, nag-apply ka ng job, for example, group 6. Okay? Ina-assess ka ng isang evaluator or ng isang assessor ng habang ini-interview ka niya. Yung questions niya wrongly phrased. Okay? What are you going to do here? I'm talking about status this time ulit. Okay? Paano mong gagawain yan? How will you correct? Or will you correct? Nag-a-apply ka nga sa kanya. Yung sabi niya, oh, you seem to be very smart, pero wala ka namang sariling company. Oh, di ba? Kaya mo akong i-correct, but wala ka namang sariling company. Di ba? Is there a possibility that you earn that type of feedback? Yes, maaari. Social dimension is always a part of how we assess grammar. Okay, hindi pa rin ako kontento, group 6. Ano ngayon? If that is a part of assessing grammar, what about it now? Anong point ng paper ninyo about assessment of grammar, imploring the advocacies of social dimension? Ano ngayon, group 6? Bakit yan nakalagay sa paper ninyo? Bakit ito a part of our topic in assessment of grammar? Why are we learning about this? Does it really matter for me to know the social dimension when I assess grammar? Ganun ba yon?
Yes, ma'am, it is essential because we are learning language by its social context. So
tama. Oh, very good. Ganyan. Diba? You have to do the connection. Oh, continue, Jake.
Sorry.
You continue. You're on the right track. Nakamute ka nga eh. Unmute ka. Jake. Si Jake yun, di ba?
Yes, ma'am. Nawala ako.
Ay, nakat ko kasi siya. Jake. Okay. One of the qualities of a teacher is presence of mind. Even if you are interrupted in the middle of your lecture, you have to remember and pick yourself up from where you fell. Okay, here. You were talking about social dimension and you said that in diba? Hindi communication ang ginamit mo eh. Meron kang ginamit na term. We need to take note of social dimension, di ba? Oh, i-guide kita. More so, Jake, in communication, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so hindi pa rin kami satisfied eh. Sige pa, Jake. Siyempre, 100 points naman yung paper, di ba? So kailangan natin mag-defend ng mahusay talaga dito eh. Okay. Ano ngayon if communication is a part of language and that social dimension is a part of language? So, yeah. Do we have any other thoughts from other members? Sawa na ako sa boss ni Jake. Di ba, Jake?
Pa-help group mates.
Okay. Okay, ako na lang para to cut the chase na tinatawag. Ma'am, mahilig ka naman sa to cut the chase. You cut the chase already. Okay, here. Communication is of course very much a part of language, correct? And language entails that we assess it on whose viewpoint, on the viewpoint of the users. For example, pag nagko-communicate ang isang estudyante inside the classroom, you have to consider the social dimensions that we are speaking of. Okay, for example, balik tayo, di ba? Saan anong mga social dimension ito? Okay. Culture, for example. Okay? People from the Mindanao area, for example, do not communicate as much as how a person from Luzon would do. Di ba? Ibang manner of style of communicating ng mga yan. Laconic ang reply. What do I mean by that? One phrase, one word is enough for them. Kumain ka na? Yes. You do not expect them to say, yes, ang sarap-sarap nga, pero mahal. Pero ang sarap talaga. At saka ito, hindi lang yan. Doon lang yan nabibili. Walang ganon. Isa lang ang sagot. Okay? Kumain ka na? Oo. Okay. Do you say, ang boring naman ito? Hindi. Go to the social dimension, di ba? Kasi this student hails from, let's say, for example, from the Mindanao area. Kaya nga, di ba, lahat ng pumapasok na estudyante may school form. Di ba? You fill in a school form. They ask you what your ethnic ano ba to? Ethnic, may tawag doon. Can someone help me? Ethnicity mo. Di ba? Kung anong ethnicity mo. Oh, ikaw ba ay Kapampangan, Tagalog, Ilocano, kang Kanai, Ibaloy, ano pa ba yun? Yung mga sa ibang Visayas area, meron ding mga grupo-grupo dyan. Bakit? Okay? Sa tingin mo, hinihingi lang yan just so gustong hingiin? Hindi. Okay? When worse will come to worse, especially if you are teaching in both elementary and high school level, you have to check these forms. Diba? Kailangan hanapin mo. Okay? Now, another dimension. Okay? Calling a student by his or her first name versus calling the student by his or her last name. Social dimension din yan. Which do you think will yield a better answer? Okay, in terms of assessment tayo. Parang feeling ko when you call the student by the first name. Kasi di ba parang soft, parang, you know, first name basis kayo, dikit tayo kasi alam ko first name mo eh. Di ba? Alam ko first name mo. Lalo na pag nickname, di ba? That's why forms are very important because that's where you get all the social dimensions that you are talking about. Okay? Social dimension is very important in assessing grammar because grammar is a part of communication and communication is a part of language. Okay. Ma'am, so ano lang ito? Pang-oral? Ay, hindi pati written. Di ba? Pang-written din. Okay. Ano ngayon? So what now? What could we make sense of it? Well, we could make sense of it by saying that we have to be aware of the social dimensions of our very own students. Kailangan alam mo naman ako sinong, okay? This is like going to war. You don't even know who your enemy is. Dapat, di ba, you have to study your enemy. Di ba? Ma'am, so enemy yung estudyante. No, that's just an analogy, di ba? I am making use of analogous statements. Kailangan alam mo yung estudyante mo. Okay? Alam mo yung kultura. Every organization has a culture. Anong kultura ng ninyo, second years? Kasi iisa lang kayo na section eh. Okay? So ever since I handled you, kahit nung isang katutak pa kayo, almost 60 kayo in your class, iisa lang ang culture ninyo. You are very hyperactive. Okay, hyper kayo. Gusto nyo, magaganda yung output. I like that very much. That's the culture. Okay. Now, meron tayong tinatawag na you deviate from the social, what do you call this? Social norms. May mga nagdi-deviate. Kasi hindi porket ito ang kultura, yun ang nafa-follow and that you base your rubrics from the culture itself. Hindi. Okay? Merong 5, 10 na naiiba. Okay? In every culture, which is very normal, di ba? You cannot aim to get a homogeneous culture. hetero naman talaga yung mga yan. Eh, sa iba-ibang families nang galing yan eh, di ba? Now, ano pa rin ngayon? Simple. When you want to make use of social dimension as an aspect in assessing grammar, okay, the first job that you have to do as a teacher is to perform needs analysis. You analyze the needs of your students. Si Floyd. Magaling si Floyd sa speaking, di ba? Ba't ko pa siya isasabak sa speaking activity? Magaling naman na siya sa speaking, di ba? He doesn't need it. Okay, next. Magaling kunwari si Jericho sa yung critical thinking. Bakit ko pa siya bibigyan ng ang dami-daming activities about critical thinking? Pero I have noticed, kunwari, medyo siya sa writing. Bibigyan mo ng writing, di ba? Yun ang ibigay mo sa kanya. Something like that, di ba? Needs analysis is always a part of your social dimension. Okay? Yun ang connection ni social dimension with grammar. It's a part of grammar. Diba ang social dimension nga eh? Sige, yun na natin? Diretsuhin pa natin ang diretsuhin. Social dimension is a part of grammar. Diba? Kasi iba-iba naman yung grammar ng bawat language. Iba yung grammar ng Chinese, iba yung grammar ng Di ba ninyo napapansin ang Chinese speaks very differently even when they do it in English? Di ba? Ibang-iba. Because it's a part of their social dimension. Yun ang social dimension. Even Pinoys. Diba? Pinoys are also entirely different. Okay. Which still does not bring me to the fact na yung standard naman, there's a standard way of assessing your grammar. And what can you say about this? Ito na lang nga ang question ko. 1 o'clock na pala. Jake and company, what is the standard way of assessing grammar again? What are we talking about when we speak about standard? And we are dealing with it in the light of assessment of grammar. Ano ulit si standard? Group 6.
Magsa-cite na lang po ako. As stated by Holmes 2013, standard varieties are codified varieties. So means to say, nagbabago po siya. I mean, chine-change niya po yung maling way of standard in the standard manner. And it is usually achieved through grammar and dictionaries which record and sometimes prescribe the standard forms of the language.
Yes. There is a standard and usually we get it from the books. Okay? You get it from the books, you get it from grammar books, you get it from the dictionary, just like what you said. Okay? Kasi may standard. Okay. Naintindihan na natin yan. Okay. Now, ang question. What do you think is the best standard that you could use as a teacher when you are already in the teaching field 5 years from now? Very personal na yung question ko Hindi na to objective, subjective. Anyone from your group can just give me an answer. What will be your standard? Yung standard kasi is parameters, di ba? Yung parameters mo. Based on whose standards? Books ang ginagamit ko. Halimbawa lang, ginagamit ko libro, grammar book. Pero 5 years from now, it might not be workable anymore, right? So what now is the standard? What standard are you going to use? Just give us cite an example, okay, of how you will employ the help of standard when you are assessing grammar 5 years from now. Kasi yung topic ninyo, ito yung andito lahat ng subjectivity in the world of assessing grammar. Pinaghalo yung standard tsaka social dimension. Take care of social dimension and there is a standard in assessing grammar. 5 years from now, anong standard? Ma'am, hindi namin alam. Ay, hindi. Gawaan mo ng ano, isipin mo at sa tingin mo 5 years from now, what will be the standard? I don't like to hear you, Mr. Jake, because I have heard you several times already. Can I hear from the others, please? Come on, group 6. Ang dali na ng question ko, group 6 ha, very subjective na yan. 6 years from now, 5 years, 6. Kasi sabi ko group 6, anebe yan. Okay. Group 5, group 6, 5 years from now, what will be your standard? Communicative competence ba? Will you focus on pragmatics already? Sa tingin mo, technologically, ICT ba and language ang pagfofokusan ko? Psycholinguistics ba? Sociolinguistics? Ano na ngayon? Paano?
Ma'am, the standard from 5 to 6 years today would be, I think, the advanced technology. So if I would choose a standard way, I would like to, personally, I would like to use Ma'am Alma's way of standard of challenging students or assessing their grammars in teaching.
Sabi mo ano, technology. Where is technology there? Gaganito ka rin. Paano kung 5 years from now, face-to-face na, ipipilit mong mag-Zoom? Ganun ba yon?
No, ma'am, because
explain. Qualify.
In 5 to 6 years, ma'am, technology would be still in here, even though we are in face-to-face na. So I can use this advanced technology like a messenger, or I can email them. I can use Zoom. Maybe we'll be with Zoom. I'm sorry, not Zoom. Canvas. Maybe we are still using Canvas, especially after, because it will not go away. Advanced technology would still evolve and be innovative in the future.
So that will be your standard, using technology. Is that what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a follow-up question. How will you know that your students are performing at par in grammar if you will make use of technology as your standard?
Okay. So, I would use the curriculum guides, or I would plan instruction that would give me specific answers what students have.
Sandali nga, anong nangyayari sa iyo? Okay, sorry Miss Vidal. Again, ano yung sabi mo?
I would plan instructions, or I would plan criteria that would give me, especially for written. I can easily identify what is wrong in their grammar if I can put a good or plan instruction that would give that answer.
Okay. 5 years from now, what are you going to use? Numerical equivalents in assessing or qualitative assessment?
Qualitative assessment, ma'am.
What is this? You explain. Ano yung qualitative? Ang quantitative, 18/20, di ba? Ano yung quali na sinasabi mo? Let's see if we have the same meaning of qualitative. For example lang, Miss Vidal.
Ay, ako na ba? Quality wait lang. I'm sorry.
Ma'am, may I add po?
Hmm.
Ma'am, qualitative assessment is focused on understanding how people make meaning of and experience their environment or world. And the example is, ma'am, through essays and projects, case studies, ma'am.
Okay. So, anong grade ang ilalagay mo? Qualitative. Ano pala ang na-choose mo? Qualitative rin ba o quantitative? Strawberry. Saan na si Strawberry? Biglang nawala.
Wala siya.
O, ano yung sa iyo kanina, Miss Vidad?
It's qualitative, man.
Bakit?
Qualitative. Yes. So if I use qualitative, I would wait.
Alam nyo, Group 6, I think there is a little problem about your paper, right? Ang problem niya is not actually the content of the paper, but as to your mastery of the content of your paper. And I have noticed, why are there only a few? Hirap na hirap nang sumasagot yung iba and you are not helping each other. What happened? Eh? Anong nangyari? Group 6. You could send me a message through the inbox. Okay? You could send me a message. Para kasing sabog yung sabog yung ideas nung ninyo, nung hindi collated yung paper. Tapos so okay lang yon kahit hindi collated yung paper. Nobody can perfect the paper, right? Okay lang yon. Pero this is one way by which we could detect the veracity of your paper by asking you to talk about it. And medyo rin siya, magulo rin siya, Oh, Miss Vidad, sabi mo qualitative. Why? Kasi I am assessing what? Because I am assessing grammar, and number 2, we are talking about a standard. And standards are set by the users themselves. Di ba? While it's true that I may base it from the book, okay, ito, according to grammar books, wrong ka dito. Okay, quanti yan. Okay, but you are made mentioning of quali. So, hindi mo sasabihin na according to the books, but still it falls under standards kasi yun nga rod ang standard mo as someone who checks, di ba? Parang may nanliligaw sa'yo, di ba? You set your own standard. For example, 10 flowers a day, white to be exact. Ay, quanti yan, di ba? Pero pag sinabi kong, give me flowers, anong flower? Any flower will do. Quali yan, di ba? Pero nag-set naman ako ng standard ko, flowers. Pero any flowers will do. Pero pag sinabi kong 1 dozen of roses, red, long-stemmed, no thorns, okay? Wrapped in a pink cellophane, okay? And then delivered to my home. Ay, yan? Very quanti, di ba? Very precise ang gusto mong mangyari. Di ba? Pero pag sinabi ko, what do you want for Valentine's Day? Ikaw? Ano nga? Okay ba saying flowers? Okay lang. Oh, there. Anong flower gusto mo? Kahit ano. Yan. I am still giving you the parameter of what I like. Pero wala na akong may standard pa rin ako, bulaklak. Okay, yun ang standard natin, bulaklak. Pero as to what it is, bahala ka na kung anong gusto mong ibigay, di ba? Para kang nagtanong sa kabarkada mo, kain tayo. Okay, saan? Ikaw? Di ba? Gutom ka rin ba? Oo, yun yung standard. Pareho silang gutom, di ba? Pero kung saan sila kakain, ay bahala na daw. Kung saan na daw mapadpad yung paa. Kung dyan lang sa ang kaya ano ba yung mga kinakainan natin dyan dati sa may Govpak? Nakalimutan ko na tuloy yung mga pangalan ng kainan dyan. Diyos ko. Pets. Oo, dyan lang sa pets ang kaya di dyan lang. Pero pag sinabi ko, oh my, gutom ako. Gusto kong kumain sa Greenwich kasi gusto kong kumain ng pizza tsaka lasagna nila. Tsaka yung may breadstick. Diba ang usapan naman? Okay, quanti na ang dating nila. Okay? Kaya ganon. In terms of how I will relate this to education, I say standard together with social dimensions are two aspects of grammar that you can never take away when you assess them. However, when you make use of social dimensions and when you make use of the standard, sometimes the standard really depends on the user of the the checker or the assessor, 'di ba? Depende yan sa nag-assess. Kasi nga I will go back, you perform your needs analysis. Paano nga kung ang standard mo ganitong kataas? Nung nag-needs analysis ka, yung level pala ayoko ng intelligence, level of proficiency nandirito. O di, yung standard mo, dapat mas mababa pa ng konti dun sa na-attain mo based from your needs analysis. Okay? Diyan na frustrate ang most teachers. Lalo na yung mga cum laude, magna cum laude, tapos magtuturo sila sa sa isang classroom where the standard is very low. Ay, diyan sila na frustrate because they could not carry on with the lesson thinking na ang baba masyado, nahihirapan akong di ba? Hindi batayan, hindi standard, hindi parameter ng isang magaling na teacher yung lahat alam mo and that you speak about it inside the classroom. That's not the true test of a very knowledgeable teacher. The true test is when you can lower down your expectations based from what your students know. Hindi yung pipilitin mo, wala na nga wala na, hindi na niya kaya, awanan, di ba? Hindi na niya talaga kaya di ba? Babaan mo na. Ikaw na, medyo ka na ng konti, di ba? Kaya nga, di ba, pagka tinatanong sa akin, Ma'am, how many paragraphs? Diyan nga ako natataranta sa tanong na yan ng mga estudyante ko. Ma'am, how many sentences? Wow! If I tell nga na 1 million, will you be happy? Ma'am, hindi, bawasan mo. Naman pala. You make it. This is my standard. Work of a college student. Yan ang standard ko. Ang work of a college student is not the work of an elementary student, neither is it the work of a high school student. Iba yung college student. Pick me up from there. Diba? Bahala. Ngayon, pag minsan mas makulit pa, Ma'am, kaya nga ma'am, ilang words. Wow, kanina sentences nga, hindi ko na nga nasabot. What more kung words ang gusto mo? O sige, 5 million words. Okay na? Diba? Di ba, may mga teachers na pilosopo, may mga ganyan. 5 million words, ayos, okay ka na doon? Or ayos na ba sa'yo yun? Di ba? May mga ganon na teachers di ba? Okay ka na sa 5 million words. Kaya yun. Nobody sets the standards, okay? Although, yung books, standards yung mga yan, di ba? Yung dictionary, standard yan. Alam nga naman sabihin ko, the spelling of cat is C-A-T. But sometimes, sometimes? Walang sometimes yan. It's always C-A-T. That's the standard, di ba? The rule of grammar says, the subject-verb agreement says, if you have a singular noun, you have a singular verb. However, in Australia, walang ganun. Hindi naman yun totoo. Hindi yun ang standard. May standard ang grammar. Pero kung ang tatanungin mo talaga sa akin is its veracity according to how you apply it inside the classroom, I say it still depends on the teacher. Okay? I have no other questions. Thank you very much, Ms. Clarice. And thank you to the participants of Group 6. Okay, Clarice.
Okay, I was muted. So, thank you, Ma'am Alma, for that supplemental information. And I still want to congratulate Group 6. You fought a good fight, at least. Okay, and now, Miss Pamela, your synthesis, please. You may now drop them. Thank you.
Okay, so according to Group 6, they have said that social dimensions have influenced the learning of a standard language more positively than negatively for the reason that we are learning a language by its social context. So if I'm not mistaken with how I interpreted it, I believe that they would mean that social dimensions help with practicing the standard of a language and assessing whether it affected the way a person learns, and also if it will boost the mastery of the learners, especially in assessing their grammar and acquiring a lingua franca. So in addition, like what Ma'am Alma said earlier, communication is very much a part of a language, and language entails that we assess it. So to conclude everything, the results of this research claims that we have to be aware of the social dimensions of our students for us to be able to help them improve their way of learning a language. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Okay, so Miss Pamela, thank you so much. That was very well taken.
That's a very good synthesis coming from Miss Pamela.
Yes, I agree. And guys, what a beautiful Sunday to end our first half with meaningful and transformative information from the different groups. I congratulate anyone who participated in today's symposium despite it being scheduled on a Sunday.
Yes.
Thank you so much for attending. So let's all give everyone a virtual clap for all this effort. Yay!
Yes. Oh, diba? You deserve good grades in your subject. Okay. However, you check your Canvas. Did you submit all the activities there? I am not yet hindi muna ako nag-check for this No, I have 12 papers to accomplish also. So sabi ko, sige, wait muna yung Canvas ko. Ito muna dahil yun may mga due dates. Okay, so I hope that you are done submitting all the requirements. You might ask, Ma'am, what about the research papers? Ito, pwede ko na akong mag-grade ng research papers. And even the videos, pwede nang mag-release ng grade dyan because it's already finished, processed, and everything. Okay, so with that, you make it good. You enjoy your academic break. I think, I do not know if the others do not have exam on Tuesday, then it means to say you are off the hook already. It's your academic break already. But if you do, then there's still one more exam to hurdle or two. And I know it wouldn't hurt because anyway, I know you are very much prepared for it. Okay, and allow me to thank you for joining us. I could see a first year here. Merong nag-join sa atin na first year for today. Clarice, I think you could also say your acknowledgement to these people who are not really a part of our class. Right, Clarice?
Yes, I also thank these first years for attending despite, yes, it's Sunday. You are supposed to be resting, you know that, but you still attended. So I really, really thank you. But this is not the final acknowledgement. For the next part of our program, let us welcome Miss Grizel Fabidad, who will be delivering the official acknowledgement. Miss Faye, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, especially for the first year. I hope you learn something and can apply it in your future presentation. So I would like to express my special thanks to Mr. Lewin and Miss Clarice for being a very informative and fun host. And for those who represent their group 4, 5, and 6, you all did well in presenting and answering the questions for your research. And I have a special mention to Ma'am Alma Biscocho for educating and guiding us throughout this course. So you have given us an opportunity in every activity to continuously challenge ourselves to reach our limits to become a better educator in the future. And so we thank you very much for that, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Okay. Hey, by the way, my dear second years, the first years will do their symposium tomorrow also. If you are free, that will be by 3:30. Okay, these are 7 groups. 7 groups sila. Okay, although we're going to do it kasi their exam is already on Tuesday. Yes, ang schedule namin is 3:30 to 5 for groups 1, 2, and 3 yata. And then we have a break. A little break naman, syempre bathroom break, get your coffee or whatever, and then come back by 5:30. And we are expecting to finish before 7:30. Okay, if you could join us, we'll be sending you the link in our class GC. So, join lang. Kahit pasilip-silip, di ba? Siyempre naman, they tried their best to be in your, ngayon nga meron, first year, Sunday ngayon, di ba? So, you extend the same favor, right? Para lang makita nila, uy, may second year dito, gagalingan namin, di ba? Pero syempre, you expect that the questions I will throw on the first years will not be as difficult naman as what I am giving you. Syempre, yun ang standard. 'Di ba? Alangan naman, 'di ba? Ibalistik ko rin ang mga tanong ko doon, hindi na kami natapos hanggang Tuesday na kami. May exam pa sila ng Tuesday, 'di ba? Simple questions only. Okay, simpler than how I did it in your class. Kasi in your class puro synthesis talaga and application. Siguro sa kanila basta. Okay? Hindi pa nga ako nakakagawa ng mga questions ko sa kanila. Okay? So, I hope that you could join us. We'll be sending you the link in our class GC. If you can, kahit pa silip-silip lang. Okay, from time to time, you could visit. Anong group na ito? Okay, something like that. Okay, finish all your activities in Canvas. I hope you did. And I am finished. Are we finished, Clarice? Or may closing remarks pa, di ba?
Yes, I would actually like to request you to please do the honor to officially end our program today, as well as officially culminate English Ed 111.
Okay, so thank you very much, my dear students. It was indeed a very fruitful trimester this time, right? So you were challenged to the core. I know that you are always on the go, and just like what I said, my heart always swells whenever you give me outputs which are out of this world. Okay, so with that, I formally close our activity for today for English Ed 111. You did very well. Okay? You carry on with whatever you have started. We'll see you in English Ed 107. I already gave you a sneak preview of what English Ed 107 is all about. It talks about yung syllabus nyo pala. Yeah. I forgot. Yes, okay, later. It talks about the different theories of language acquisition, both first language and second language acquisition. You didn't acquire English just like that, my dear students. Theories help you in acquiring your English language, okay, and even your first language. And we'll be dealing with all of this in detail when we go to English Ed 107. Okay, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. And I formally close our culminating activity. Thank you for joining us even on a Sunday. I appreciate it very much. Okay, Mr. Calvin, by the way, could you give me a summary of the attendance, please? Isang column, name. Second column, date kahapon. Third column, date ngayon. Kahit check lang, okay? Or if you like, kahit wag mo nang lagyan ng check, if it would be bothersome for you, kung yun na lang name natin, get it from Canvas, and then lagay mo lang A, kung absent si Biscocho kahapon, at saka ngayon, AA. Yun lang, kahit yun lang ang ititik mo, yung mga A. I think that would be easier than putting all the check marks. Okay, so thank you very much, my dear students. Do we have any questions before we formally end our symposium for today? You did very well. You know that you did very well. Even if I always appreciate your efforts, and even if we always commend you, let not that enter your head and make it a lot bigger or a lot heavier than what it contains. Tatandaan mo yan palagi. Okay? Kahit gaano kang kagaling, let it just sit in your heart. You appreciate the talents that you have, the skills that you have, the proficiency that you have, but let it not rest in your head, and let it not make your head heavier or bigger than its contents. I hope you get what I mean, okay? Alam nyo kung anong ibig kong sabihin. Stay humble. When first years ask for your help, you help them. Okay? Kasi malay mo, magtatanong yan, kuya, ano po yung sa ganito? Huwag mo sabihin, bahala ka dyan. Okay? Kung siya ulit teacher mo, bahala ka dyan. Hindi gano'n na mag-help kayo. Diba? It pays to help. Diba? Lalo na yung mga strategies, paano ba kayo? Alam mo na, pag si ma'am, lagi yan may kung ano-anong mga gusto siyang mangyari sa buhay niya. Mga parang gano'n. Diba? Ganito mga gusto niya. O, diba? Visual siya. Gusto niya yung sinasubmit mo, magandang itsura. Kasi highly visual learner siya eh. Ganon, di ba? Dapat magbigay rin naman kayo ng tips sa kanila. Remember, we are all experiencing a very challenging time. Okay? You know, when you get help from a single person, it already makes a very big difference. Do not be frugal about help, because in time, you might need one also. Okay? So thank you very much, my dear students. Clarice, did I end it already? Very clearly? Okay na ba yun, Clarice?
Yes, thank you, ma'am, for the message, appreciation, and reminders. So, alam kong gutom na po tayo ngayon.
Tama.
Time check is 9 p.m. But before the Zoom meeting ends, I'm sorry, but please turn on your cameras for our picture.
Yeah, please. Okay, o pala, no? Hindi pa pala tayo nag-ano. Sige.
So,
mag-heart ulit tayo, yung mga yung mga kalokohan ng second years at ni Miss Biscotcha. Mag-heart kayo dyan. Ayan, di ba?
Miss Colleen?
Okay. Okay na lahat? 1, 2, smile po. Okay. Waki daw. So, 1, 2. Okay na po.
Okay. Thank you very much. Back to you, Clarice.
Okay, so who is our host for today? I mean, the host of the Zoom meeting. The one
Si Jasmine. Jasmine will give us a recording of our proceedings. She did the recording. It's my link, but I turned her into the host, so she could end our meeting already. Thank you very much, my dear students. You always stay safe. Eat a hefty lunch, please.
Yes, so thank you. So now we will be ending the Zoom meeting. See you on the second half. Bye.
Yeah.